In the multi-billion-dollar race to shape the future of fertility, three giants are battling it out for dominance. So today, we're going to crack open their 2025 playbooks to see who's really winning, who might be at risk, and what it all means for the entire industry. Let's get right into it.
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we'll step into the arena and meet our three key players. Then, we are going to put their finances under a microscope. After that, we'll uncover their secret weapons, these incredible moats they use to protect their empires. I'll even give you a kind of red flag checklist to look out for. And finally, we'll zoom out and look at the huge forces shaping the future of this whole market.
And really, this all boils down to one massive question that's going to frame our entire analysis today. In this high-stakes market, who truly holds the power? Is it the established global giant, or is it one of the super nimble domestic champions? You know what? The answer is hiding in the data. Okay, let's dive into our first section, the arena. This is where we meet the three companies at the very heart of our explainer, the global incumbent, Organon, and the two Chinese powerhouses, LIVZon and Renfu. Now this slide, it tells a really fascinating story. At first glance, you see LIVZon is the revenue leader, for sure. But look closer, because the real action is over in the growth rates. Organon is posting a super strong 11% growth, and the smaller Renfu is just exploding at over 13%. So this isn't just a numbers game, right? It's a clash of totally different strategies and market positions.
And this is where you can really see those different game plans in action. Organon is a true global player, pulling in almost 3/4 of its money from outside the US. But look at LIVZon and Renfu. They're dominant domestic champions, with over 80% of their business rooted right there in China. It's a classic tale of two strategies, massive global scale versus focused, concentrated domestic power.
Okay, now let's go a layer deeper. It is time for a financial health check. We're going to peel back the layers and look way beyond just the top-line revenue to really examine the financial resilience and, the potential risks of these companies.
So before we get to the really big numbers, we got to get our heads around a key term, goodwill impairment. Just think of it like the multi-million-dollar cost of a past shopping spree that didn't quite work out. When a company buys another one and that new business doesn't perform like they hoped, they have to write down its value. It's a direct, painful hit right to their bottom line profits.
And trust me, these numbers can be absolutely staggering. In 2025, Organon took a massive $301 million goodwill impairment charge. They said it was because of declining forecasts and just general economic uncertainty, but wow, that is a huge write-down.
And Organon wasn't alone. Renfu, which is known for its strategy of buying up other companies, it wasn't immune either. It recorded a pretty substantial impairment of over $46 million in 2025. That is a crystal clear sign of the financial hangover that can come after you go on an aggressive shopping spree.
But here's the total flip side of the coin. LIVZon, they reported zero goodwill impairment. And that's no accident. It's a direct result of their strategy. By focusing on growing from within, what we call organic growth, LIVZon has completely avoided the financial headaches that can come with making these huge, risky acquisitions.
So we've seen the risks, right? But what about the strengths? I mean, how do these titans protect their profits and defend their turf from competitors? To understand that, we need to talk about their business moats. The concept is super simple, but incredibly powerful. A strategic moat is a competitive advantage that's just ridiculously difficult for rivals to overcome. Exactly like a deep, wide moat protects a castle from invaders, a strong business moat protects a company's profits year after year.
LIVZon's moat is basically a technology fortress. They have mastered the insanely complex manufacturing of something called long-acting, sustained-release microspheres. Now, this is not something a competitor can just decide to replicate overnight. It's a massive, high-tech barrier that keeps the competition out, even long after the patents on a drug expire.
Renfu's moat is totally different. They are the supply chain kings. I want you to imagine a bakery that not only bakes the bread, but also grows its own wheat and mills its own flour. Renfu controls the entire production chain, from the most basic raw materials, the active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, all the way to the finished drug on the shelf. This gives them immense control over cost and supply, which is just a killer advantage in this market.
And then you have Organon, the global gatekeeper. Its moat is just its sheer size and reach. We're talking a distribution network that spans over 140 countries. Organon uses this incredible engine to snap up late-stage drugs and then plug them into their system to sell them worldwide. They effectively get to bypass all the huge risks and costs of early-stage research. Okay, let's switch gears and turn all this analysis into something you can actually use. This next section is designed as an investor's guide, a checklist you can use to spot the kinds of hidden risks we've been talking about, no matter what company you're looking at in this sector.
So how do you spot these hidden weaknesses on your own? Well, let me walk you through an actionable guide, and we'll use our 3 companies as real-world examples. Let's walk through our mine avoidance checklist. First up, the M&A hangover. You want to watch for those big impairment hits after a company makes a lot of acquisitions. As we saw, this flag was triggered by both Organon and Renfu. Second, R&D transparency. Be a little wary of a sudden, sharp spike in what's called capitalized R&D. Livzon's rate jumped from 3.5% to almost 14%, which they justified, but it's definitely an item to put on your watch list. Third, channel health. Basically, is the company slow to collect cash from its customers? Renfu's turnover is sluggish, and that's a warning sign that a lot of their capital is tied up. And finally, corporate governance. You have to look for massive internal loans. Renfu's $1.03 times billion in related party loans, well, that's a major red flag that absolutely requires a much closer look.
All right, for our last section, let's pull the camera way back and look at the big picture. What are the powerful forces? We're talking policy, technology, and global trends that are going to shape this entire industry in the years to come.
This quote right here, it just perfectly captures the central tension that is defining this entire market. On the one hand, governments are desperate to expand access to fertility treatments to try and boost birth rates. But on the other hand, they're slamming on the brakes with strict price controls to manage costs. It's this classic push and pull that every single one of these companies has to navigate.
So the big question is, how are these companies fighting back? Well, we're seeing 3 big strategic moves across the board. First, they're all integrating AI to speed up everything from drug discovery to manufacturing. We're talking cutting quality control time from 10 hours down to 1 minute. Second, they're all shifting to these complex, long-acting drugs to fend off generics. And third, they're hedging their supply chains by building factories overseas to get around trade barriers. And all of this brings us back to our final massive question. In an era of AI-driven innovation and intense government pressure, which of these business models is actually built to win the future? The global gatekeeper? The supply chain king? Or the technology fortress? I guess the next decade is going to reveal the answer.